streaming live via the internet, welcome to ISP Radio, your weekly source for ISP-related news, events, and interviews with industry experts. If you deliver internet via fiber optic, fixed wireless, coax, or any other way, you're in the right place. And now a brief word from our sponsors. Link Technologies Incorporated provides the lowest priced Microtech products in North America, as well as Wade Towers, Mimosa, Cambium, Ubiquity, Nettonics, and a host of other products and services to be your one-stop shop for your ISP needs. Visit www.linktechs.net. That's linktechs.net for more information. TowerCoverage.com, providing online RF coverage maps with website integration. Stop rolling your trucks for every site survey and start doing installations. Visit www.towercoverage.com now. And now we'd like to present our hosts, Steve Grabiel and Dennis Burgess.
Welcome to another edition of ISP Radio. Like the producer said, I'm Steve Grabiel, broadcasting from Moriarty, New Mexico, and Dennis is co-hosting the show and producing it out of St. Louis, Missouri in his office. And as you can see, I'm wearing a sweater. The mornings here are pretty darn cold, but we're getting nice 75, 80 degree days. It's just beautiful out here, and the beauty is no wind. But I hope everyone got back from Wispapalooza safe and sound and geared up, ready to go with all the new knowledge that you gained at the show. Dennis, did you have any comments about the show? Did you guys get back safe and sound, and did you guys turn up with more business?
Oh, yeah. I mean, of course, we definitely talked to plenty of WISPs, plenty of operators, things like that. We did give some training sessions that I was involved in, both the IPv6, that was Master Monday session, as well as another IPv6 course and a VPLS course that ended up being pretty full. So really good stuff for me. As far as Link Technologies, of course, we're busy as always, which is always really, really good. We have quite a few different engineers available. We have hardware. We've actually discussed building new warehousing because we have so much stuff coming in and out. So lots and lots of good stuff that's really going on. We've been selling Wade Towers for quite a while, and that is definitely probably been one of the busiest products that we've been selling. Of course, we also sell Microtech and Ubiquity and everything else. And then we also get to the tower coverage people, and it really surprises me how many people don't know that Link Technologies is associated with tower coverage and vice versa. Because we'll sit there and talk to customers, and we will talk to the people and go, hey, we also sell hardware. We can get your Microtech and your Ubiquity and all that kind of good stuff. And then they're like, oh, you sell hardware too? I would just use you for support, or I've just used you for tower coverage. So it's always really good to see all of that, really great information being disseminated against, to the membership. But overall, the show was excellent. We had a excellent show. I think the new format, so this is the first 5-day format that we've done. Did you like it, Steve?
Yeah, I did like the new format. The breakout Mondays, I just wish there was more hands-on, because we do have a longer time to visit and talk about the topics. Just wish there was a little bit more hands-on. I really like the way that they did the food. Hamburgers and hot dogs is perfect for a lot of the people I talk to. They like the food. I just wish there was a couple more topics on Thursday concerning fiber and leading into All Day Friday on fiber. I really appreciated that. But yeah, the 5-day change in the middle of the week worked well with me. I drove in Saturday night, drove all day Saturday and stayed Saturday night. And that was a pretty good deal because I paid $99 for that too. So by and large, thumbs up. Well done show, and a lot of vendors. We took up a ton of space. It was good to see the show grow like it has.
Right, and next year we're hopefully going to have some more vendors. We're actually going to have the same space, but hopefully we'll actually make room for more vendors. And there was a lot of vendors there. One thing that I did not see, and this was kind of unfortunate, but I did not see a whole lot of product announcements. And this actually happens on a regular schedule. Is that most of the product announcements that we get is on a 2-year cycle. And this is what I've seen, because last year we had a whole bunch of product announcements. We had LTEU, we had all kinds of new products that people wished to talk about. This year, just like 2 years ago, we don't really have anything new. We have all the products and manufacturers, and we do have some new manufacturers. We had Perseem on the show a while back. We had quite a few new manufacturers that were either building stuff or selling products. But we did not have the here's the latest and greatest of XYZ, things like that. Now, I'm not saying that there wasn't any new product announcements, but there wasn't that many things going on. We did have a truck giveaway at the show. Steve, did you get in on that?
Yeah, I got in on that, and that was a innovative way of setting up a booth. I appreciate Streakwave thinking outside the box. That was cool.
Yeah. So basically, you had to watch like 4 videos or something like that, or attend 4 demonstrations at the Ubiquity booth, and then in conjunction with Ubiquity, Streakwave basically got the card, and they put them in a drum. They drew for a truck. Now, I do know that there was a individual that they drew that was not there. And let me phrase this. He was at the show. He was in the building. He just wasn't present at the show drawing. They gave him
bummer.
Yeah, they gave him ample time, and then they like, okay, well, I guess we're gonna have to draw another name. And supposedly, do not quote me on this, but supposedly as they drew that name and they announced the new name and the new winner came up and was shaking everybody's hands, that other person came up. So. Yeah, I mean, that was the most expensive bathroom break of his life, probably.
For sure.
But otherwise, we do have the buy sells team. Of course, Link Technologies is a buy sells reseller. We do sell that. We are going to get those pricing. We have their new 5 gigahertz product. They have some new 365 products, things like that. Some base stations. And things like that. That is going to be coming out here shortly, but it has not hit the distributor channels as of yet. But we will get those pretty quickly if you know what I mean. So
yeah, one thing I just threw out there when we were talking before the show is, at this show, to me, usually the past 3-4 years, I come back overwhelmed and inundated with new ideas and concepts and stuff, and I feel like I'm drinking from a fire hose. This one was more relaxed. It was more comfortable. I was able to listen in and get a lot of good insight, new insight on some things that I probably should be doing on my network, but I wasn't drinking from the fire hose. I was drinking from a straw. So it was a really nice show for that aspect. I didn't come back overwhelmed with that was the neatest thing. I'm going to go out and buy it.
Yeah. And we actually had a number of our contract customers. So we actually do what we call NSA agreements, which is network service agreements, and that allows us to basically get a better price to our customers, our support customers. And actually, almost all of our support customers, our NSA agreement customers, were there at the show, and we talked with them and had dinner and all that kind of good stuff, which is really good. But we've actually seen a couple members that were devastated by the hurricanes down in Florida, and the Florida Keys and things like that. So it's really good that they got up to get out of the disaster area, if you want to call it that, but get out of that area and get their mind focused on, hey, we need to fix what we have, but we also need to fix everything else, and we also need to see what's new at the industry. It's really neat to see those people there as well.
Yeah.
So, I can't really sit there and tell you that there's a whole bunch of stuff. I do know WISPA is going to make some of the videos available for some of the sessions. I believe they stream some of the sessions. I don't know where. I don't know anything about that, but they did do that. And Nathan Stuck will be putting all the presentations in a Dropbox folder, and people can just download that as necessary. So it's all really good in such, but we'll see. And then the next show is in Birmingham, Alabama. I guess I need to look up the dates. I have the dates. I just didn't pull it up here.
So Trina's already started in on that, I imagine. She probably gives herself a week break and then dives right back into it.
Yeah. And this is Birmingham. It's Birmingham, Alabama, March 6th through the 8th. The details are still in forthcoming, etc. It's at the Birmingham Sheridan Hotel, so it should be a nice hotel. Really should be a great time, and hopefully the weather's better than it was in St. Louis. But it still should be a great show, just like everything else. Just if you attended Wispapalooza, just imagine this is the East Coast, more central show, and it's definitely smaller. It's about half the attendees, but it's still a really good show.
Yep. Well, next week we will have no show. Dennis has got the producer of the show's got a previous engagement, so we will not be having a show. What do we got the next week there, Dennis?
So we do have
what's on the calendar?
Yeah, we do have some stuff on the calendar here. Let me pull that up here.
I've been loading it up.
Yeah, so we got Simon from Simon Westlake from Sonar. He's going to be talking about basically the Sonar acquisition of Wismon. That was pretty well publicized just before the trade show, just before Wispapalooza. And really that's it. Now we do have quite a few. That's on the November 1st is when that is. We do have quite a few people in the running for shows. We've talked to a lot of people, and Steven, I'm sure you can sit there and say that you probably got, I don't know, 5-10 people or something like that want to be on the show, but they haven't committed to a date yet.
Absolutely, yes. We got a lot of good content coming down the pike.
Gotcha. So we got a lot of content coming up, but right now the only thing that's confirmed is Simon from Sonar. Really great guy. I talked with him at the show. He was really busy, of course, but overall I think it'll be a really great show. And again, that's on November 1st at 11 a.m., just like normal.
Well, excellent. Well, I'm going to bring on our guest today. 2 weeks ago, we had Bridgewave on to talk about their millimeter wave gear that they offer, and they've been offering to WISPs here for a while. But we got Hisham El Adley with Bridgewave. He's the technical marketing director for Bridgewave, to talk to us about them getting involved into licensed microwave with their Navigator product series. Hisham, are you there?
Yes, I am here, and thank you for having me on once again.
You bet. We're glad that you are on again. And so you guys announced the Navigator at the show, correct?
Yes, we announced it just prior to the show, and we brought Navigator to the show, as well as to Jitex in the Middle East in the same week. So it was a busy week for us. Yes, the show was quite interesting to attend and to show the product, and we had a lot of traffic just around this one product.
Now, did you guys actually have a booth there?
Yeah, we had a booth.
I must have missed that.
Yeah, the problem I think we had was that it was very close to the food services.
Oh, darn the luck, right?
Yeah. So people are running toward food.
Gotcha. Yeah, I apparently missed you, or I didn't see you. No, I just.
Well, Hisham had to show up one day, and then he took off to go after during the show. He had a job he was doing, right?
Yeah, I needed to. I was there for one day, but the rest of the Bridgewave team was there for the full 3 days of the floor being open. But yeah, I had to leave to go to see a customer.
Gotcha. All right. Well, I guess you have some presentation material that you wanted to show everybody about this new product.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, so we're very excited by this product. We've been working on this for the last few years, and as I mentioned in the previous talk, Bridgewave is a business of Remic Broadband Wireless. Remic, we've been working with microwave for over a decade. We have over 1 million radios in the world right now deployed with Remic radios. So we've been working with microwave for a long time, and this is our brand new microwave radio called Navigator that not only is it a bleeding edge product in terms of performances, but there's some features in this product which will really change the game for WISPs and customers in terms of flexibility of product, in terms of adaptability of the product, and also in terms of just sheer capacities.
Gotcha. Well, let's get into this and let's see what it's all about.
So, this product, with our experience with over 1 million radios and working with carriers, to WISPs, to enterprises, we've learned a lot in terms of what it takes to deploy large networks and have very robust networks, and we've kind of poured this technology and this knowledge into this new product. So, a product, not only in terms of network design, simplifies network design, but that's not just because of its Ethernet features, that's because of its RF features, and that's something that's a little bit different that I'll get into, and hopefully you'll find as exciting as I do. And these features are really meant to simplify network deployments. So it's one thing to have a product which can do everything and do things at very high capacities, but it needs to also be easy to set up, easy to use, and has to be cost effective.
Yeah.
So here's our new microwave radio. This is a Navigator. It's going to be available from 6 gigahertz to 42 gigahertz. The first frequencies are 11, 18, 23, and 15, with 6 to follow very closely, and then the others will fall in. The frequencies are coming together pretty quickly. There's 2 versions of the product. There's a dual transceiver radio and there's a single transceiver radio. So Navigator DT, the dual transceiver radio, has 2 transceivers, and there's actually 4 modem cores in a single terminal. And that radio can actually do up to 5.5 gigabits per second uncompressed with those transceivers. So each transceiver with 2 transceivers supports 4 subcarriers, which gets you up to 5.5 gigabits per second capacity. So we're getting to millimeter wave radio performances in terms of capacity, but with microwave, which is something that was really kind of not even conceivable a few years ago, and the reason we can do this, or what kind of backs this, is we develop our own ASICs. And so instead of using ASICs and semiconductor chips that anyone else can buy and that are kind of driven by a wider set of requirements, we develop our own ASICs, our own baseband ASICs, with our modem core, our own RF ICs operating microwave frequencies, and this was painful. I don't want to kid or suggest anything otherwise. It was difficult, and it took a lot of time, but we did it. And these ASICs allow for a lot of technologies and features that are that I'll speak about. So there's Navigator DT, dual transceiver with support up to 4 subcarriers, and Navigator ST, the single transceiver, which supports 1 transceiver but 2 subcarriers, and I'll talk about those subcarriers in a bit. So Navigator ST, which is a smaller radio, you can actually do up to 2.75 gigabits per second.
That's some outstanding capacity.
Yeah, it's something, in microwave, when I started out back, well, I don't want to say how long ago, but when I started out, 100 megabits per second was considered to be an extreme capacity. And then it became 300 to 400 megabits per second. And then maybe about 3 years ago, 1 gigabit per second became something that was really bleeding edge. And it was hard to actually get to 1 gigabit. You have to work with 112 megahertz bandwidth, which of course is not available in the US. And you'd have to, there was a lot of limitations in getting to that capacity. The one thing with this product, and I'll talk about the subcarriers, is that we provide multiple paths to multi-gigabit speed. So you may not have, all the spectrum that you want, or it may not be in the same place. Maybe it's divided up in, across the overall frequency. And we have some technologies in here that let you gather that spectrum and take advantage of the spectrum you do have available, even if it's not one big slice, or if it's not contiguous, or it could be even spread across different frequencies, and that's very exciting. So the product itself supports channel reuse technologies and multi-channel operation, whether it's 4+0 or XPIC or MIMO support as well. XPIC can be done with a single radio, so a single radio, a dual transceiver radio, can do XPIC within itself without requiring any external equipment. We also have built-in both equipment protection and path protection. So equipment protection is to safeguard against the failure of some hardware element. Path protection is to safeguard your path, whether it's space diversity or frequency diversity or even hybrid diversity. If you're running a microwave path over water, you'll have multipath, for example, and no matter what size antenna you use, you're going to get hit with notches, and so you want to take advantage of some kind of diversity scheme, and so we offer those diversity schemes with this product. The product itself also has all types of compression, as a modern radio does. We have preamble IFG suppression. This is kind of like a standard approach to reduce your or improve your capacity, and header and payload compression as well. And one thing I won't really talk about too much in this today, but in terms of simplification for customers, we don't like having a lot of licenses, and so customers should be able to order a radio. Select the capacity they want and a few features, but not have to order like 20 sets of licenses or have licenses cut up into all these little micro slices for each feature. So features like compression, synchronization, carrier Ethernet features, it's a single license for all those features. It's not going to be a bunch of different licenses. We're not going to make it painful to customers. The product has both synchronous Ethernet and 1588 if required for a network. And we have a feature which is useful to some customers, GPS. And so when GPS is installed, there's a little antenna that sticks on the top of the radio, and that's useful to customers who are doing timing synchronization. We use it actually for MIMO operation to get better coherence. And it could also be used for Grandmaster. So I'm not sure for WISPs if it's as useful, but certainly for carriers, it's very, very attractive. AES encryption, which is always useful depending on your end client. If it's a hospital network or government, we have AES encryption built into the radio, and of course it's PoE or direct DC. Here's just a view. So I have a couple of slides where I'm just going to show you some basic, features like connectors, but then I'll get into the more exciting things. But there was one thing exciting about this. We do have 10 gigabit interfaces on the radio. So it's a high capacity radio, and instead of like running multiple 1 gig lines down, from a radio like this, you can run a single 10 gig cable and carry all the traffic of the radio. So we have two 10 gig ports available. They're optional, so you can either have 10 gig ports or 2.5 gig ports. There's an SFP that's always there as well. That's either 1 or 2.5 gig. And of course, there's some fixed RJ45 as well. There's a feature on the side, and so we have a little nose that sticks out on the side a little bit, and that nose is there for a purpose. We wanted to have a little bit better access to this port. So underneath that port is a USB plug or port, and you can actually have a Wi-Fi feature installed in the radio for no-touch provisioning. So the USB is used for serial access or to use a memory stick if you're configuring the radio or trying to save its state. You can also have a Wi-Fi option installed in that port, and it can be left in place. And so in that case, if you have a truck drive, by a tower, you can access the radio without having to connect an Ethernet line or connect through a network, and see the state of the radio and access the radio that way. And that's something that's very attractive to some customers of the radio. This is Navigator ST. This is a single transceiver radio. So it's a smaller box. One less SFP than the Navigator DT, but pretty much all the same features. So we have two 10 gig ports available, or two 2.5 gig ports, depending on what's selected. And then you have your PoE and your other ports as well. One difference, we don't offer the GPS with the ST version. GPS is something that's more useful, as I mentioned, to carriers, and they're more attracted to the dual transceiver radio, at least at this point. So here's one of the features that is fairly remarkable about the radio. The radio allows for the diplexers to be changed out by customers. So traditionally in microwave, and the way licensed microwave is set up, you have to, you have a frequency. You check with your coordination agency in terms of what channels are available. You select your channels from what's available, and then you have to order a radio that has a built-in diplexer, receive and transmit filter that fits within that channel spacing. And so for different frequencies, you might have different sets of diplexers. So in 18 gigahertz, for example, you might have several different diplexers to choose from, and so you have to order the radio like that from the start. And that's traditional. Whether you bought a radio from Remic or bought it from another microwave vendor, you'd have to kind of know where you're going to be, and you have to buy the radios in that form. What's different with Navigator is that you can change the diplexer yourself at a customer site, and so you may know your channel spacing, and so you'd order the radios with the diplexers installed exactly as per channel spacing, or you may not know your channels, and then you could order the diplexers separately, or you're working with a end customer, and radios have to be relocated or the channels change. And in this case, instead of sending the radios back to Bridgewave for refurbishment, you can just purchase some extra diplexers, which are low-cost devices, and install them yourself. And so you can see the diplexers. They're these squares underneath. In this case, it's a coupler. And so this is a way to reduce inventory requirements by customers. So you don't have to stock, for example, or spare every possible version of a radio. You just spare the base frequency radio, and you spare the diplexers separately, and then you just cobble them together as you require. And of course, we retain our warranty when these diplexers are changed out. We designed the radio to allow for this to be done by customers. It wasn't. It was one of the main requirements of this product.
So on the diplex, you say can convert from high to low band. What do you just turn the diplexer there 90 degrees?
Yeah, so the diplexers, if you want to change a diplexer, you basically remove the coupler, which is this long object on top, and the two diplexers are below. And so you can unscrew the diplexer and change it to a different diplexer. One in microwave, and actually in point-to-point, you have one radio is high, one radio is low. So the far radio, let's say it's low. Here, what you could do is if this is a high radio, it's running in the high frequency for that channel, then you could unscrew this diplexer, rotate it, and rescrew it back, and it converts to low radio. And again, that's something that also reduces your inventory requirements. So if you're sparing, if your customer site, let's say you have 10 links in your customer site, and they're all the same frequency, instead of sparing a high and a low radio, you just spare one radio. And you convert, if there's a failure in the field, you just convert one radio, your spare, from high to low as desired. There's also this OMT or coupler. This is all built in. So this is Navigator DT with two transceivers. So there's two waveguide outputs, going to two diplexers, feeding into this object, which is either an OMT or a coupler. And so this is all built in. So you can do 2+0, or you can do XPIC, or even 1+1 if you wanted to, within a single terminal. And that's something that is very, very helpful to customers because it reduces their equipment requirements. No external coupler or OMT, no requirement for using an XPIC antenna, for example, because here that OMT is built in to the radio, not external to the radio. It's not an external slice either, that you buy separately. When you purchase the radio, you can purchase with either the OMT or the coupler, or even with two waveguide outputs, which is also another exciting technology, which I'll talk about. So I mentioned subcarrier operation. And so, Navigator ST, there's a single transceiver. So one transceiver, normally with one transceiver, you can operate with one channel. And so that channel in this product can be up to 160 megahertz wide, which is also something that's unique to Navigator that no one else can do. And that's because we did our own ASICs. Our ASICs are ultra wide. In fact, 160 megahertz is not even close to what our ASICs can accomplish per channel. So you can have one channel, one carrier running at 80 megahertz, but even through that single transceiver, you can actually run two subcarriers. And so you can run two 80 megahertz channel with the same hardware as running one 80 megahertz channel. And so you double your capacity. And not only that, but you can also mix and match bandwidths. And so through a single transceiver radio like Navigator ST, you can run one channel or one subcarrier at 40 megahertz and one subcarrier at 80 megahertz, or you can run one at 40 and one at 20. It doesn't really matter. We have that flexibility in the radio, and so that's a doubling of capacity. You have, 2 times the number of subcarriers as you have carriers, and you can take advantage of the spectrum you have. As I mentioned, 160 megahertz bandwidth that we can support with this product is fantastic. I mean, it's incredible. With 160 megahertz bandwidth, you can do 3 gigabits per second with the DT version, or 1.5 gigabits with the ST version of the product. But not many customers have 160 megahertz bandwidth available. 160 megahertz, if you have that available, it either means you're a spectrum holder, or you're a carrier for a carrier. You're going to have the golden key to spectrum if you have that kind of bandwidth. But you might have two 80 meg channels available, or maybe you have a 40 and an 80, or maybe you have some other combination available, or if you're in 6 gigahertz, maybe you have a 60 and a 30. And so with a single transceiver, we can let you gather that spectrum, increase your capacity, and not have to buy additional hardware, another radio, another antenna, cable up another set of radios to a tower. This is really phenomenal. And the ST product has one transceiver, two subcarriers possible. The DT transceiver, the dual transceiver product, you can do 4 subcarriers. And so normally you'd run with 2 carriers, and so you can run with, let's say, 2 80s or 2 160s if you're so wealthy with spectrum. But you can also run with 4 80s as subcarriers, or a combination of 80s and 40s, or whatever combination you desire. The product supports multiple subcarriers up to 4, and that's something that's unique in the industry. No one else can even get close to this. And this is really informed or allowed by our ASIC. Our ASIC has 4 modem cores in it, and so when we developed that ASIC, we kind of went for the moon, and we hit it. So in the dual transceiver radio, I showed earlier a version of the radio, with 2 transceivers with a built-in OMT or built-in coupler. And OMTs and couplers, they combine your two transceivers to a single antenna port, and that's great. But sometimes you might find it useful to actually have 2 waveguide ports. Since you have 2 transceivers, you might as well feed or be able to feed 2 different antennas. And so we can do that. We can actually use a single dual transceiver radio Navigator DT and use it as a repeater node. And so one port can go to one antenna and another port can go to another antenna, and the 2 ports can be completely independent in terms of how they're allocated. Not only can they be different antennas, they can even be different frequencies, and that's something that's very exciting that I'll talk about as well. So in this configuration, you don't have a direct mount to an antenna. You're mounting the radio on a remote mount, and then you run 2 flex waveguides, one flex waveguide from each port to a different antenna. So when you do this with DT and you deploy a dual transceiver radio with 2 waveguide ports, you can actually use this, as I mentioned, as a repeater. And so in this chain, here the example, I have an 11 gigahertz Navigator ST radio, single transceiver radio, and it's passing it's beamed to a second radio, which is a DT, dual transceiver radio, with one frequency of 11 gigahertz and one frequency of 18 gigahertz in this case. And so this DT terminal forms a complete node in this case. And traditionally what you'd have to do is have 2 radios here. You'd have to have an 11 gigahertz radio and an 18 gigahertz radio, cable between the 2 radios, or to a shed, to a network switch, and have that connection. But with our Navigator technology, you can have a single radio that supports 2 frequencies and can run to 2 different antennas, and that's unique. There's nothing like it anywhere.
No, all done on the tower. Pretty sweet.
It's all done on the tower. It's going to reduce lease costs on the tower. It's going to reduce installation costs. It's a single box. You're not going to be running multiple boxes, multiple pieces of equipment, multiple cables. Even the network configuration, it's all done inside the radio. You're not going to some switch or have to do some kind of funky quality of service externally. It's all done in the radio. And so that's something that we really worked hard to achieve, and because of our technology and how we approach the problem, and because of those ASICs and all that crazy investment, if I can say that, we are able to accomplish this dual frequency operation.
Yeah, in this configuration, you're even saving the cost of an extra radio or a box.
Yes, yeah, we are. We're reducing equipment count by half, for these nodes. And so here, you're using a dual transceiver radio instead of 2 single transceiver radios, but it's a single box. And, in this case, you can still do, Navigator ST, single transceiver. You can still run 2 carriers here, go to 2 carriers to this port, have 2 carriers out of this port going to another radio. In this case, this other Navigator DT is 2 18 gigahertz ports for this example, and then at the end of the line you have a single Navigator ST radio, so you can mix and match these radios as well.
Are those software defined radios, or are they hardware?
So for the frequency, you have to order the frequency because it also affects the diplexer that's installed too. So at the time of ordering a radio, you have to know that it's an 11 and an 18, for example. But it is a software-defined radio in that you can define the channels, and we even allow for non-standard channel plans as well. So we have customers in some parts of the world where anything goes. So they'll come to us and they'll ask us, well, we know you support ETSI, but we want you to do something a little bit different. We want you to run an ANSI plan in this ETSI location, but use some of these other ETSI rules. So we can define, there's a lot of flexibility and freedom in the radio, and also in terms of its GUI configuration. But if you want 18 gig, you have to buy the radios 18 gig, or if you want 11, you can cross the ring to a 6 and 11 gigahertz radio. This is something that I would have never dreamed of. Actually, I did dream of it, but I didn't expect it to be possible so soon. And just
Gotcha. And hey, Ashim, we're going to take a second here because I have no idea what I had. I had a blip, and
okay.
we are trying to make sure we're being published, but apparently the YouTube stream is just working just fine, but the Facebook has apparently stopped, and I'm just trying to make sure that everything is working.
Yeah, this is incredible.
Yeah.
Cost savings.
Yeah. And
Yeah, it's both cost savings and the simplification of network design and radio network design. There's a lot of work that we can do in Ethernet, like creating more Ethernet features and more networking features. But at the end of the day, this is a radio, and investing as much, or if not more, in terms of the RF technologies will lead to much lower costs for end customers.
Gotcha. So I'm going to restart it, and apparently it decided to completely stop. Kind of go figure. But our YouTube stream is good, and we will reshare out the part 2 of our Facebook stream. However, for those people who are having issues, make sure you go to ispradio.com to get the full video. But continue on, man. We definitely have your video there. It all looks really good, so we will continue on here.
Okay, I will proceed. So you can also bundle radios together, and so in this case, this is 2 Navigator DT radios with an external coupler, and we use a standard REMIC antenna interface, which is quite common, and you can get antennas from a bunch of different suppliers as long as you just state that you want a REMIC antenna interface. Most suppliers of antennas will understand what that means, and so in this configuration, there's 2 DT radios in a 4+0. It's the same hardware as a 2+2 configuration as well. So this is directly mounted to a single antenna. Here's actually a rendering. I actually took a photograph of this also, but it didn't come out as nice as the rendering. Equipment protection, we support 1+1, 2+2, and of course the path protection techniques like space diversity, which I recommend highly if you're going over water and other multipath situations. There's something that's kind of special too with the radio. So normally when you're doing equipment protection, you want to double up your equipment set. So you have 2 radios, 2 physical radios, and that's probably the answer or the solution for most customers. But if you're looking for a really like low cost protected scheme, you could use a single Navigator dual transceiver radio and use the internal coupler and do a 1+1 hot standby with a single radio. Now that only protects the transceivers and not the baseband. But if you're looking for like a low cost protection scheme, so there's no, only one radio, no external coupler, a lower footprint on the tower, then this low cost 1+1 configuration may be a good solution for you. In terms of antenna interfaces, so the REMIC standard interface is with the radio, but we kind of constructed the radios to easily change out the latches on the radio. So we kind of built a structure so that we can adapt the radio to other antenna interfaces. And so if there's old antennas, from some third party that's not REMIC, check with Bridgewave, and we may be able to. We may either already have an adapter, or may be able to develop an adapter to allow this, this new breed of technology radios, these Navigator radios, to be deployed on existing antennas, which don't have the standard REMIC mount, and that will be really something that will facilitate this advancement of performances on older systems. So for WISPs, this is just an overall chart for WISPs. Navigator ST tops up at about 2,750 megabits per second with dual subcarriers. If you happen to run at 160 megahertz bandwidth, you could run. You're more likely going to run lower unless you're rich with spectrum. But we can support up to 160 megahertz bandwidth. And Navigator DT with 2 transceivers and 4 subcarriers will actually give you 5.5 gigabits per second capacity, which is really, really phenomenal, with microwave distances compared to millimeter wave. In millimeter wave, we have our 60 gigahertz BW64, which is a 1 gig radio. And then, of course, in 80 gigahertz, we have our FlexFG 1000 and light products at 1 gig and 3 gig. And the product which I talked about last a couple of weeks ago, which is FlexFG 10,000, which is running at 9.68 gigabits per second capacity. So, our some of our customers, what you're looking at doing is running Navigator radios as the main backhaul solution, and then using FlexFG 10,000s as their last mile solution, or to spur off the ring, for example. And provides you basically fiber-like performances with microwave and millimeter wave radios.
Are you guys able to, with this simplifying the network, like you said, able to tie that into the Flex 4G? There's no dual transceiver on any of the Flex stuff, right?
Yeah, in millimeter wave, they're all single transceiver, but in millimeter wave, it's a little bit different. In millimeter wave, there's a lot of spectrum available. So like Flex 4G 10,000 operates in 2,000 megahertz bandwidth. To get to its 9.68 gigabits per second. In microwave, you don't have that much spectrum, and you're also fighting for spectrum. So Flex 4G 10,000, lightly licensed, you'll have a lot of spectrum available to you, and there's a lot of frequency reuse because the beam doesn't go that far in millimeter wave. In microwave, you're fighting for spectrum, so you look for technologies like XPIC, to reuse the same channel. You're looking for technologies like MIMO, possibly, to reuse the same channel, and you're also looking to find ways to use the spectrum that's there. And so that's kind of the reason, or one of the reasons why we started seeing these dual transceiver radios, start to market a couple of years ago. Navigator kind of takes that to an extreme where not only can he do, one transceiver or two transceivers, but he can also do two subcarriers or four subcarriers, and not only that, but they can be independent of each other. One can be 80 meg or 40 meg or 20 or some other bandwidth. There's no limitation. You're not forced to run a dual transceiver radio with the same channel plan on the two transceivers, or even the same frequency in this case. And so that's really what we're kind of aiming for. You got to be able to take advantage of the spectrum you have, and spectrum is congested in microwave. Less so in the U.S. than in Europe, for example, microwave, but it's still getting congested, and you're looking for channels, and so you got to find a way to take advantage of the channels which are there.
So let me ask this question, and this I think this is kind of a foregone conclusion, but I want to make sure. So let's talk about your Navigator ST. First off, that gives you dual carrier, so you can run up to 160 megahertz. Is that correct?
You can actually do 260 megahertz subcarriers.
Okay. And is that what is required to get you to the 2750 megabits?
It is.
Okay.
So that's if you're running with a single 160 meg channel, and so one of the limitations with subcarriers, and there's a couple of limitations. So the radio operates up to 4096 QAM, but with subcarriers we're limiting it to 2048 QAM. So that's one limitation. And also there's a rule in FCC and also with ETSI where if you're running with subcarriers, you have to run 3 dB lower power. Per subcarrier.
Okay. So now this is a full duplex product, correct?
Yes. All our products are full duplex.
Okay. So to get the 2750, which in reality 2750 you divide that by 2, so basically to get 1300 meg or 1400 meg both ways, are you expecting to use two 160s or are you expecting to use one 160?
So it's actually 2750 megabits in each direction. So it's 2750 up and 2750 down.
Okay, so so 2750 up and down, and that's using 260 megahertz channels.
Yeah.
Okay.
But let me go back to that subcarrier slide.
And I understand. I mean, you may not have 260 megahertz channels, but you have to. The only way you're going to get the 2750 up and down to 2.7 gig is to have 160 on both subcarriers. However, most people are not going to have that. They're going to have 80s for the most part.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So in this example with 80 megahertz bandwidth, this is about 750 megabits per second up and down. And so you might have this available to you, and that's great in 11 gigahertz. You might have two subcarriers of 80 megahertz available to you. And that will give you, 1.5 gigabits per second up and down. You can also have like 240s, maybe you don't have 80s, maybe it's just 240s available to you, and that will get you up to 750 megabits. Or you might have some other combination of bandwidths available. It's all about allowing people to, or customers to use the spectrum that's there, and not having it be symmetrical, where it's always the same on each channel, or even contiguous. For example, this can be next to each other. It could be spread apart as well inside the available frequency plan.
Gotcha. So awesome. I just want to make sure. So again, 80. So I'll use a Mimosa. So I have a link, 13 miles. It is using a Mimosa. So I actually have a 80 megahertz carrier on both sides.
Yeah.
So that would give me 750 meg both directions?
Yeah, approximately.
Okay. And I would have to get another 80 megahertz channel or have the availability of going up to 260s to get the full bandwidth out of the radio.
Yeah, so if you're being, let's say you have a Mimosa radio here running with 80 megahertz bandwidth with 750 megabits per second. So here you can have a dual transceiver radio, whether it's 2 antenna ports or a single antenna port. And here you could either run with, so you have an 80 meg channel here, and you can have another 80 meg channel here. But this other transceiver, maybe you don't have, in let's say 18 gigahertz, you don't have 80 meg channel. Maybe you have 240s available. So you can run 80 meg in with 11, and then 240s out of the 18 to get your capacity.
All right.
That would work.
Gotcha. All right. Continue on.
Okay. So we were excited by the Flex4G 10,000, which we showed a couple of weeks ago. Our 9.68 gigabit per second millimeter wave radio. We're kind of amped up about this product. This product is designed not just to be best in class in terms of feature set, but provide those flexibilities that we've been elaborating over the last little bit of time. The only way we can do this is through smart design and innovation and investment, heavy investment in ASICs and in RF technologies. Without that knowledge base and that investment, we'd just be doing what other people do, which is use off-the-shelf chips. And here we wanted to do something a little bit different and kind of go in our own direction. And that lets us do things like having 4 subcarriers in Navigator DT, and then the subcarriers can actually operate up to 160 megahertz each. The features like the replaceable diplexers and the high-low band configurability and the customization, that's offered to customers, it's all there to simplify and reduce costs for customers. So simplify networks, both the Ethernet side of the network as well as the radio side of the network, and reduce costs, capital costs and operating costs. We intend not only to keep on pushing technology and capabilities, and we'll do that in both microwave and millimeter wave as well. I think when I was here a couple of weeks ago, I mentioned this. We have a promotion, so this is something I've been asked to include. I volunteered to include it too. So our 10 gigabit radio is offered to WISPA, principal members of WISPA, till the end of the year for 9,500, including antennas. So Bridgewave, I think has a perception in the market of being an overpriced or high-priced provider of equipment technology, and that's probably because we were a pioneer in millimeter wave. And things have changed a little bit in terms of competition and also availability of product. Because of REMIC and because of the work we've been doing, we're able to offer products like the Flex4G 10,000 at really, really aggressive price points. And that will continue in the future with our other products like Navigator 2. We don't want to, we want these products to be highly adopted by customers and not be just fringe products for people who are looking for just the extremes of performance.
There you go.
So the 5 gig that we're seeing with the ST, is that with header compression?
No, it's not. So in the radio for capacity, we don't include, at least in our numbers, they're layer 2, so they're not including the layer 1 stuffing, and they don't include header compression or payload compression. So with header compression and payload compression, you'll get higher capacity than I show earlier, and it just depends on your traffic type. So maybe you'll get 15% improvement, 10%, 20%. It just depends on your traffic type.
Yeah, I like how you market that. It's, this is the minimum you could get with the space you have.
Yeah, because not everyone will be so rich to have that kind of spectrum available to you, and so you'll have your spectrum. You'll be able to take advantage of that spectrum with this radio, however it's divided in space. That spectrum could even be over 2 frequencies. You maybe have spectrum in 6 and 11 and you use both of them.
Right.
So you have and you can do it with a single radio. And then there's all these techniques to increase your capacity, whether it's header compression or payload compression, or some funky quality of service approaches to make certain that the important capacity is used during fade conditions. All these are kind of built into the radio to help improve the overall quality of the end customer's network.
Yeah, to me this seems like a pretty unique solution. I'm kind of wowed by it.
Actually, I got
the things I've seen before.
I got a good question for you. This is kind of an oddball one, but my assumption is, let's say I have an 11 gig and I have a 6 gig in the same path. Okay.
Yeah.
So with my dual radios, I can order with the DT product. I can actually order an 11 gig and a 6 gig product. And will it actually bond, for lack of a better term? Will it actually use both an 11 gig and the 6 gigahertz and bond that and actually give me the increased throughput that I have on both frequencies?
Yes, it will.
There you go.
So we can bond, those carriers together, so you can get
powerful.
Yeah, and that's why we have those 10 gig interfaces on the radio. So 10 gig is there because even if you're running at lower capacity, hitting 1 gigabit per second with this radio is not that difficult to do.
Right.
Once you have the dual subcarriers or quad subcarriers and you do compression, for example, getting over 1 gigabit per second. So you don't want to break up your traffic on 2 cables. You'd like to use 1 cable and even have a second backup cable. And in this case, like this ring network for this on this slide, this is a ring network. You might do add drop at each of these locations. So you can use the 2 10 gig cables down, but you're passing traffic within the radio here. You're not passing traffic between 2 radios on a tower.
How much power does each unit use?
I mean, in terms of consumption?
Yeah.
Yes.
Wattage.
So that's something that depends on frequency. It's probably going to run, depending on the frequency, between about 80 watts, 85 watts or so. If it's a single transceiver radio, it's like 40 watts, 45 watts.
How does that translate to PoE?
Oh, so there will be a PoE solution available for both the single transceiver and the dual transceiver. The PoE for the dual transceiver, all these PoEs are non-standard PoEs. These are high-power PoEs.
Okay.
That are required, and it's actually very similar to our FlexForG 10,000 in terms of the PoE types.
So you're getting 80 watts into a PoE.
Oh, you can go much higher than that.
Okay.
So with proprietary PoEs, the issue with PoE and the limitation of PoEs is that Ethernet requires the cable length to be 100 meters or less. And the Cat6 cables or Cat5e cables, the gauge of the cable is pretty thin. So you're kind of limited also by by Ohm's law in terms of current, in terms of power drop over the cable run as well. And so when you get to the higher power levels, in terms of PoE runs, you're gonna, you'll be okay, but you might have to use like Cat6A cable, for example, to run up to 100 meters. Direct DC maybe what a lot of people do for the higher power levels.
So
Is it neg 48?
Sorry?
Is it neg 48?
Yes, it is.
Question.
Yeah.
Does the what comes in the box? I mean, this is kind of the new standard. I mean, we look at buy cells, and everything comes in the box. Your PoE injector, if you have one, your power supply, if you don't have one, etc. What actually comes in the box? Do we get a neg 48 volt PoE? Do we get a neg 48 volt DC injector?
Okay, so for PoE, we'll have both an AC powered version and a DC powered version, so you'll have the two options. And for Bridgewave offers products as links, typically. So when you order a radio, you're actually ordering a link. You're ordering the two sides of the radio. And because PoE is an option, because you can go direct DC, some people would prefer going direct DC because if they have direct DC, it might be lower cost than doing PoE. Plus, you can go over 100 meters with direct DC. So if you're running fiber, you may not want to run PoE in that case. So in the configuration of the radio, when you're selecting the radio from Bridgewave, you kind of decide what frequency you want. If you want dual frequency or not, you decide on whether you want ST or DT, single transceiver or dual transceiver. So you make some choices, and based on those choices, that's what gets shipped to the customer as well. So even the SFPs might be 10 gig SFPs. They might be single mode or multi-mode SFPs as well. And so there is a selection procedure, and we will offer some guidance and eventually even some configuration tools to help customers, select the radios that they need for their network.
Gotcha. So when we make the order, so whenever the customer makes the order, if there is not a standard package that comes with it, you basically build it as you need to, and if you need a AC to DC converter to run DC up the tower, you would purchase that at the time.
Yeah, and we do offer accessories like external power supplies and
Gotcha.
Other pieces if desired. You can even purchase the radio from Bridgewave with external coupler, which we would supply, or external antennas, which you can supply as well. So you can get everything if you desire from Bridgewave, or just the radios and go out and procure your own antennas.
Gotcha. No, it's not a problem. I was just trying to make sure that there wasn't a standard set of, you buy it. It's just like everything else with Bridgewave. You buy it and you say exactly what you want. And there's all these part numbers, and you have to know what you want in order to purchase it. It's not like, again, buy cells. You just buy a base station and you get everything you need to make it work. So
yeah, like we're going to we're working also on some tools to help customers more easily configure these radios, and these radios are very flexible. And flexibility, can create some complexity in terms of ordering, and so we understand that, and we're trying to find ways and working on ways to minimize that complication to customers.
There you go. Alrighty, Steve. I think we got some great information here. We actually have had a couple comments on our chat that says the presentation has been excellent. So very, very good information on that. That's always really good. Unfortunately, our Facebook stream stopped, and I cannot sit there and tell you why, but apparently Facebook ended the stream, or the stream ended. I can't sit there and tell you that, but we went ahead on Facebook and told everybody, hey, you just need to go to ispradio.com, because that's where the full video is, because we did get it restarted with YouTube without a problem, so that is there. Otherwise, I think we're really good. I think we've covered a lot of information. I appreciate it.
Hisham, to me, this is a game changer. I mean, your 10 gig solution was a game changer, but this is huge.
Yeah, I mean, getting that kind of speeds out of 11 gigahertz and 6 gigahertz, and then bonding them all together, that's pretty neat.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've had tremendous interest in this product, and the company, our company is completely devoted, and driven to bring this product to market at all the frequencies, for microwave, licensed microwave. So, there's a tremendous amount of work going on right now to bring this product to market. We already started doing some trials with customers, and it's something that we expect will change. Will set a new bar in terms of microwave.
You bet. So this is expected to be released about next year, Wispapalooza, for sale?
I would say earlier. We have most frequencies actually well underway or even completed at this point. I would look more in the first quarter next year.
Oh, wow. Okay.
There you go.
Maybe we could get you on the show to talk about your trials and see what you're actually seeing in the near future.
If they let me do that, I'd be very happy to. Normally trials are confidential, but I'd be glad to come back and talk about some specific features of the radio and elaborate a bit further on terms of certain capabilities, and also how those capabilities kind of meet WISP requirements and what WISPs are looking for, because we sell to we sell to OEMs, we sell to Bridgewave sells to carriers and to WISPs. We always want to hear more.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for being on the show, and look forward hopefully to speak to you in the near term. Dennis, no other questions on the chat?
No, I think we are good.
Well, wonderful show, and again, thanks Bridgewave for being on the show again. Tremendous capacity these guys are offering, and it looks like they're bringing their prices down to our level, if you will.
Yeah.
Well, Dennis, you want to wrap us up, and we will talk to you guys not next week, but the week after. We're talking with Simon.
Yeah, Sonar. Yep.
With Sonar.
All righty, guys. Thanks a lot.
Thank you for listening to ISP Radio. We hope you've gained new insights and additional wisdom in our industry as well as your business. Please remember to visit our show sponsors via the links on ispradio.com. If you're interested in becoming a show sponsor, contact us at sales@ispradio.com. Now go out there and push those packets as fast as you can. Good luck and Godspeed.